What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 129 of the Lombard Trucking Show. Thank you all once again for being here. Before we get rolling, got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over there who kept me fueled over the course of this weekend. Big shout out. This show is brought to you by the gentlemen, the business themselves, my friends over at Super Coffee. Again, it is Prime Day right now. You can get Super Coffee on sale. Hit up Amazon, get that first purchase using the discount code Lombard20. Get 20% off your first purchase. Again, it is the better for you option out there. So whether you're waking up, listening to the show in the morning, no better way to start your day than, especially with that Super Coffee Extra with those B vitamins and some protein going your way, and also 200 milligrams of caffeine. Get it. It's the good stuff. Also, big shout out to these guys right here, a company that has made a stake and how they care about this industry. Green Screens. I got the jersey on, and we'll be diving into that in just a moment. Appreciate all of you guys who are tuning in live right now, but let's dive right into it. This is the after action report regarding my very first Ironman event, the Middle Distance 70.3, which took place in Waco, Texas, here on October 6th. Race started at 7:30. I got in the water at 7:45, about. I'd have to go back and check the actual time. It has the time in there. And let me start off by saying Ironman events in general are absolutely electric. Let's start off with the event, and then we'll talk about everything that kind of went into training and then the actual event itself. But what's great is it's backyard race. Waco's not that far from where I live. It's about an hour and a half drive. Funny. So I had a hotel booked, which was an extended stay. One I've driven by multiple times, especially while driving. It was a Woodspring Suites in Waco, advertises near Waco University. And the pictures, deceiving. Upon checking into the hotel, the people who are there, now mind you, I came with my wife and my dog, and I have quite a nice bike and a bunch of gear and stuff I'm bringing with me. The hotel itself, upon checking in, we found out they just recently stopped allowing smoking inside some of their rooms. The attendant behind the desk didn't look happy about their life. There was an unopened bottle of beer at their desk, as well as a bottle of medication. Now, look, I don't judge. I played along with it while checking in, but humorous as it was, I decided, you know what? I'm here. It wasn't that expensive. I kind of went back to my days in the Marine Corps. I've stayed in some odd, questionable places with hotels and motels with friends. Nothing I'm not used to. I can get it done anyway. As long as I got a roof, we'll make it happen. But my dog had this wild anxiety, and when we got in the room, and the room, by the way, had mold in it. It was exactly what you're expecting of an extended stay. It was not a residence inn. I've stayed in a residence inn before, which is normally kind of nice. This, absolute garbage. Long story short, we called an audible. An Aloft hotel did have room and was much closer to the actual Ironman Village and the starting line of the race. And we had an electric scooter with us. So when it came to getting set up and getting transition set up, things were actually a lot easier. So big shout out to actually my number one supporter and the most important person in my entire journey, and that's my loving wife, who has been riding with me through all of this and through all of my entire life endeavors. She's really the true hero of anything that includes my story. So we ended up getting the Aloft. We got up there on a Friday night. It's nice to go into these events not in a rush, and more on that in a moment. Is a marathon a lot different? I've commonly talked about one of the marathons I've run while I was driving. I picked up a load. I was on the road, and I had to do this as an owner operator. I had to find freight to get to the Missoula Marathon, and I took a load from Pryor, Oklahoma to Spokane, Washington. Now, mind you, the delivery dates was fine. And what's great is my where I had to stay was what I was driving. So sleeping arrangements perfectly fine. But so I made that delivery. I got to Missoula on a Friday and the race was Sunday. So same concept, but basically coming in off the street. It's not like I was rested or did any sort of tapering, anything like that. The week leading up to that Missoula Marathon, I remember I almost was in a panic because I went for a run in Nebraska and it was hot. It was June. It was still hot. The wind was blowing so bad. I could barely run 3 miles and it took the breath out of me. I was like, I think I'm going to DNF this race. But either way, so getting in and getting acclimated, even though it's a backyard race, just like getting in there, it's about getting your mind right, getting in the zone, auto zone, ready for this race. So having that full day Saturday was super important. I connected with people that I've been training with, got to have conversations with them, learned a lot of information from the athlete briefing, was able to check in my bike. Now, the only toxic thing was the Facebook event page for the actual race. So many athletes in there. They were mainly concerned about wearing wetsuits. They were curious about the water temperature, whether wetsuits were going to be optional. Some people's biggest fears of triathlon happens to be the swim. And all these people are so reliant on wetsuits because they add buoyancy and they can also add speed. But there are regulations on your options to wearing them. And even if you are allowed to wear them, you could get too hot in them and overheat. Also, if you wear them in certain temperatures, you're not eligible for age group awards or what have you. Ironman's got a whole bunch of rules. We're not going into that right now. But so having that full day, it was awesome. The Ironman Village is really cool with all the local vendors set up there. They sold out of merch very fast. So logistics, by the way, I'd love to have a conversation with anybody who works at Ironman. And I think that that's going to be coming soon. They have trailers there. If you're on Twitter, if you've been following, I posted a picture of their trailer that brings their merch. They obviously must need trucks and a lot of stuff that brings the equipment, like all of the signage, the buoys, the stuff that's on the bike course. They clearly need a lot of logistics to run such an event that requires so many permits for such a long bike, for being able to swim in the open water, as well as your regular road race that goes on for it. So a lot of logistics probably plays into these events. And I'm curious to hear more about how they execute it and how they get it done. We're going to have to, if anybody's tuning in live, if you got a plug or connection, we're going to have to make that happen. We're going to have to get them into the Freight X and the LinkedIn wheelhouse on it. But that Saturday was relaxed. I spent the days, so kind of leading up to it, if this is something you're thinking about, or if you're an athlete or you're just starting into fitness and you're just interested in this information, I did taper going into the triathlon, and I'll talk more about the training before I get to the event. So I did taper that week. I had kept it. I was traveling that week. I was at Orange Series Convention in Nashville, which was simultaneously going on at the same time as the Association of Supply Chain Management conference that was also going on in Nashville. And I'm going to, end with that as well, because I don't believe in coincidences on that. So I had to train while I was there. Luckily, I was able to get in a light, 6-mile run. I was able to swim during the week. I got in a great 2-hour zone 2 and 3 Peloton workout. I kept it really light going into the week, not getting my heart rate up, not going super crazy. And so felt fully recovered really going into Sunday. I did spend 2.5 days upping the carbs going into it. And this is all from research. I was given a book by Dan Golding about specifically the middle distance, the 70.3. And he talks about nutrition a lot in it. And it's the most important part. And it's the foundation of what's going to drive your success if you're going to do one of these types of events. So I made sure I still got my protein, 200 plus grams, but it was nice to ignore the calories, kind of not, worry about my regular tracking, just adding in. And the carbs have to be decent. I didn't just pig out and go to McDonald's and, go have a bunch of crap, so to speak. I was getting it, from good sources, rice, certain, sourdough breads, other stuff I find. Did kind of get a little bit, I was traveling, so I didn't really grocery shop. So on Saturday night, my kind of pre-race meal, and going into it, you can't just have a bunch of fried chicken before a race. You got to think about the aftermath of what can come out from the food you eat. So Friday night, Friday night had Panera bread. Saturday night, we got takeout from a pretty decent Italian place. And shout out to our guy on Twitter. He had actually given me the recommendation for it. He does remain anonymous, but you can follow him. He's the Peanut Gallery. Shout out, man, for that. Decomplice, I believe is the name of the restaurant. So a Freight X Twitter friend recommended my pre-race carb loading, some pasta, a couple slices of pizza, and went right into the race. Now, before going into the race, when it comes to what training looks like for a triathlon, a lot of the dawn of wanting to do this started spurred with 75 hard. Now, I had signed up for the Captex Triathlon, an Olympic distance, back in February when I did my packet pickup for the Austin Marathon. So I knew I was going to do triathlon. I already had a road bike. I can swim. I can run. Going to put it all together and just, do it. Just get, dip my toe into it. But the idea of going for Ironman events specifically took off when 75 hard started, and I started consuming more content about it. And I really wanted to double down on this mission regarding driver health. What can I do? I'm no longer behind the wheel. I know how hard the job is. And if you know me, I speak from the heart, and I do. There's a lot that goes through my mind where sometimes I feel like a fraud for not still being behind the wheel, but advocating for the company. But what gives me the confidence to continue doing it is I have done the job. This runs in my family's blood, a long history throughout the 20th century. So I think I come with at least my family's name that carries some merit. And I've been on one side of the dock door in the warehouse, and I did it. And then I was on the other side for 3 years. So I've done the work, and I'm never not ready to go back into that. And the door is never shut on that. And that I'd like to talk about in future episodes, because we'll see where my career and where things can take me. But I knew that if I was going to prove myself and to be accepted by not only the industry, but fellow drivers of even wanting to keep me around, I need to do some hard shit. And some of the hardest shit out there happens to be Ironman events. I know there's probably harder in the ultra world, and I'm sure that's not off the calendar or off the, nothing's off the table when it comes to events, when it comes to ultras or whichever. Shout out to my previous guest, Nick Klingensmith. You guys heard his story. I'm sure him and I are going to be teaming up in the near future on some stuff. And want to give a huge shout out to this guy right here. Love that you're calling yourself the Grand Californian, TJ. If you're not following this guy right here, this guy right here is, I call him my spirit animal often. And it's guys like him who are really why my heart's in it, because guys like TJ are truly like the lifeblood of this industry and the salt of the earth, and who are out there doing the work and living it and breathing it. And he's out there living it the same way with his healthy lifestyle. He's got he follows a really good diet. He's tuned in. He's all about his plyometrics and yoga. So if you're not following him, have to give that quick shout out. Appreciate you for chiming in on there. But I knew I had to do hard stuff. And that's where the idea of training for Ironman basically came from. So what does the training look like for that? Now, I know on Instagram or what it may look like I work in a gym, so it's easy. It's really not. Yes, I coach. I'm on the mic, but that requires me. If you think between the two studios, it's almost 1,000 members, and we only have so many coaches between the two studios, and we have to be actively engaged with these people. So there's a lot of stuff off the mic that we're doing from a personal training standpoint, being their coach, like in their life. We're hanging out with them outside the studio, going to run clubs, going to events. Like, we're not only their friend, but kind of a mentor, so to speak. So we got that. With the studio, I'm at marketing events. I'm ripping phone calls. I'm absolutely dumping on brokers out there when it comes to my call volume and how I'm reaching people. So you want to win, you want to rack sales, brokers, you call me. I know how to bring them in. I know how to make super fans to bring them in the studio. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. But so there's a lot of extra work that goes into it on top of regularly being involved in this content, going to freight related events, going to Broker Carrier Summit, going to all these different things, engaging with drivers, doing content is kind of full time too. What I put, some of my tweets are obviously funny, but on Instagram, things kind of have to have a purpose. I need to show myself, but it needs to have a purpose and go along with my mission that I do it. Takes a lot of mental, takes a lot of stuff. So, I mean, it is time consuming. I have to now find that time again, just like when I was trucking. I have to find that time again to train. And to anybody out there, especially if you're not number one, if you are a driver, and if I was still driving, I'd figure out a way eventually to have dipped into triathlon, whether it just be going off the hip, somehow figuring out, maybe not quite Ironman distance, but I'd have figured it out somehow. But overall, the baseline foundation of my training remained with Orange Theory, because I am a coach there, and I've learned so much. And now being a coach for over a year and I've learned and absorbed so much information from Orange Theory's education, from going to convention, from my other coaches. I have rock stars on my staff. I have brought out a team of absolute killers. I've got another marathon runner who's been coaching for years. I have a D1 college football player he's played against Cooper Kupp. Like he was at that caliber of college football. Got a D1 decathlon. I just recently, a coach who was working for me, she was offered a promotion with another company, couldn't turn her down. She's in her 50s, has run 10 100-mile races. So I've got some killers on my team that I've been able to learn from. And I've been able to use the Orange Series templates to kind of give it to me, because the number one thing, if you want to do anything endurance-wise, or you're going into running, you have to cross-train. You have to strength train. Dan Golding, in his book about the 70.3, this is where triathletes and endurance athletes fail. They fail to touch weights. And TJ's, even not even weights. You don't even necessarily need to touch weights. You can go the TJ method with the resistance bands. You need the resistance training in general. You need to cross-train in general. And that was huge. Orange Theory provides great injury preventative unilateral movements to do that. We're doing some of the same exercises you'll see at a core bar Pilates class, but with dumbbells incorporating the rower. And then the treadmill templates. We're talking about, I'm not the type of guy who's going to go to the track for speed intervals. That's running in circles sounds boring, but hanging out with my friends and being social with members and building relationships with them while, kicking it into high gear for treadmill intervals, that's good. And in those, and in those 23, 24-minute blocks, I'm getting 3+ miles. So good interval training on the treadmill. Outside of that, I show, Saturdays and Sundays would either be long run days, but Saturdays for the past couple of months have become my long ride days. That is what my weakest discipline in triathlon has been, the cycling. And that is where you need to spend most of your time. A lot of my training weeks I had 10+ hours of training, sometimes up to 15, depending on how long my bike rides were. So I would have that much exercise in a week, 10 to 15 hours going into it. Hour in the pool here, hour Orange Theory workout, but throughout the week, another hour random road run. I'd go to a run club, and then you're talking about a 4-hour bike ride on a Saturday. And what's cumbersome about the bike ride, and I think the most difficult, is the fact that you have to have so much nutrition on you, because you're going for long hauls. It's been hot. It's still hot. It's still in the 90s here in Texas, and it gets hot even when you start early. So you've got to have you've got to have the electrolytes and carbs on you, and in your water bottles, the goos. You're stopping at stoplights. You're in traffic. So it's the most cumbersome part of training. But I focused on it and got it done. And I learned along the way. Once again, logistics played the main goal. Let's head right into the race, because I call what I did Sunday a success. You always wish I did better, but I'm still riding such a high that I've never felt before in my life. But it's not that I don't want to sound cocky, but I had an open mind and did what I was told. I did what I was told to do it. I executed it to the best of my ability. I was told what I needed to do. I didn't go hard on the swim and ended up with a PR in that distance swimming in open water. Like I've never, even in a pool, I don't choose to swim that fast, 35 minutes to do the 1.2 mile swim. I didn't feel like I was working that hard though. I did some breaststroke. I defogged my goggles. Like you have to navigate around people. It's also the most physical part, being like physical. You're near a lot of people. Probably I should have had a strap around my waist, so I could have taken a couple dollars in my pockets. You get your rear end grabbed a lot, and a lot of people like to rub up against you. in the water. And I had my hand slipped in between a few legs too, because you get lost in it. But coming out of the bike, I knew the only thing on my mind was nutrition. It's a long transition. The transition from the swim to the bike that transition alone was over 6 minutes before I was mounted and off on the bike. Because the Disney, you had to go uphill and you got no shoes on, and then across the street, almost across half a football field to the bike. By that time, your feet are dirty. I had to wipe them off. At that point, I knew I needed to take my time, but I knew I needed the nutrition because it was going to get hot. Nutrition wise, I use big shout out to Bear Performance Nutrition, BPN. That is what I used on the bike and throughout the run. There is a product out there called G1M Sport. It has it's lemon lime flavored. It's got electrolytes and carbohydrates in it. 1 scoop, 80 calories, 24 grams of carbs, and I believe 250 milligrams of sodium, and I forget the potassium. I had 2.5 scoops of that in I had 2.5 scoops in each water bottle, 3 water bottles. I had a grand total of 7 BPN Go gels, which also 100 calories, 24 grams of carbs, also with electrolytes, also had the caffeine. I had 7 of those. I had a BPN Go bar, which is almost like a Cliff Bar, but it's a little bit lighter and fluffier. So as soon as I got on the bike, a couple miles in, I hit the bar, started sipping water. And I knew essentially from what I learned from experienced triathletes, you want to be around 300 calories per hour, if not more. I was doing a little bit more because the bottle itself had over 200 calories in it and then the goo had 100. And I essentially ripped 2.5 goos per hour with 1 water bottle. I had 1 of those bars, and then on course, there were water stations on the course, and they're just chucking plastic bottles of water and electrolytes in them. And it was pretty awesome. And then I grabbed 1 more Morton's kind of power bar as well. It's about 250 calories with a bunch of carbohydrates in it. I stopped on the bike to pee once, right around the halfway point. So it was a little bit after 25 miles in. So I did stop to pee once, didn't mind it, wasn't worried about it. Got back on. The bike was the most boring part. It was without a doubt. At first, it's pretty invigorating. You're with a group, but then it gets lonely. And me, during marathons, I'm gassing people up. I'm hooting and hollering, screaming. I'm literally if somebody's in Austin Marathon, if somebody's at the first bathroom station, I'm like, this is your first time? Just, take a knee, pop a squat, that sort of. When there's a hill, I'm screaming, yo, remember Pearl Harbor. I'm getting what you see on Instagram and TikTok is what you get mid race. I'm doing that to gas the crowd up. I was trying to do that on the bike, but again, cyclists, they're all geared out and they're locked in on their bars. And I'm cheering, I'm get some big dog. And they're just quiet. And it's all right, man, cool. I get it. You're Lance Armstrong, whatever. And I audibly out loud twice was get me off this bike. I was just get me to the run. I just need to get there. And it wasn't because I was tired. It was just the monotony. It was the monotony of it. But that's triathlon. That's Ironman. It's the monotony. And it's how much of that translates to life, doing the same thing over and over. How do you grind your way to success? And then, there was a mental hump at mile 40. At mile 40, because it's finally, 16 miles left. You know that 16 miles is going to be relatively quick. You're going to head back into town. You're going to start seeing stuff. You'll start to speed up. It's going to flatten out. But then you realize, oh no, we got more to go. We got more to go, buddy. And you got to. There's a mental hump I really had to overcome at mile 40 on the bike. Of we ain't done. I had to rehype myself up to be no, you got to throw this bike down, and then you got to get back after it. And the bike to run transition it's the most painful part of triathlon. You go from no impact to impact, you're going from that repetitive cycling motion and very little impact on your knees to then hitting the road. That's a short transition, less than 3 minutes. And I had a belt and you put a belt on at your transition station that has your bib on it with your number. I was 1215, shout out. And on that belt, I also had 6 more go gels. Now it was hot. It was about 95 degrees. There was humidity, and the sun was cooking at that point. And so as soon as I got to where I could start running, I just tried to get myself into stride. And in the first mile, I felt it right on the inside of my quads, right about, I'll stick my leg up right about here is where I started to feel like it starts to get like that. It's kind of like this wobbly feeling where and the muscles are kind of getting tight, not yet a cramp. It's really hard to describe, but that's where I felt it. But I just like focus on my form, knowing, hey, try not to heel strike, high cadence. This is all stuff I learned. I was saying in my head, high cadence, 100, 185 on that cadence. Your cadence when you run is like your step count, just like in music. That's why people like to run with music. So I was just thinking about cadence, short strides, short steps. I got in a stride. I peed early on in the run. I peed around like mile 1.5, 2 or something. Let it out there. And from then on out, I just started to get into stride and I felt comfortable, but it was hot. So I just made it my goal. I'm gonna go as fast as I can in between water stations. It being so hot, they had water stations every mile marker. So I would slow down in them all. I didn't stop running at all. I would slow down, rip water, throw ice on me, or throw ice down the crotch, rip the water. They had an electrolytes, rip the electrolytes, rip the last water, and then I was gone and I would take off. And what I can tell you is it was the nutrition that did this. That's what drove me to be able to sustain. My average mile pace was 8:29 during the half marathon. The time on it 1:51 during the final leg. The bike, by the way, was just under 3 hours, 2 hours 57 minutes. And the only reason why I was able to sustain that run and push it that hard was because of the nutrition. I saw people on that course. I saw dudes' quads twitching, or not quads, dudes' calves twitching, like literally like moving in front of me, like they're like something out of Alien. Like we're like guys grabbing the back of their leg, like dragging, like pushing through. Like the cramping is real, and that's what happens when your body's depleted of those electrolytes. But I had poured sodium and potassium as well as carbohydrates in me because I knew going into that the nutrition is key. What you're feeding yourself on course, especially in that heat. If it was 20 degrees cooler, I might have I'm not saying I would have anything like I probably would have gone faster if it was 20 degrees cooler, but a lot less people would have probably cramped just out of the sheer fact that when it's 95 degrees, whatever your regular heart rate is at whatever pace you're running at, it's plus 10 on your regular heart rate, which means you're burning more calories, which means you're going to be losing more salt out of your body. So I know this show is getting like technical. It's very fitness and related, but this is a 70.3 after action report. So appreciate you hanging out with me. And in the run, I didn't come on it through any mental. I knew if I got to the run, I'd make it because I've been in that pain cave so many times before that I know kicking, screaming, whatever happened, I was gonna push through it. And for the most part, the run course was that's where you're again with people and the crowd's in it. So there's so much support and you're seeing the city out that it just fires you up. But when I got off that bike, the amount of mental clarity I had and the fact that when I took a breath and I wasn't winded, I just reinvigorated with this absolute spirit of I'm doing this. I can't believe that I'm doing this. And as I was moving, again, having that imposter syndrome, looking down at my watch, I couldn't believe, I used to look down at my watch when I go on runs, when I'd be over the road and I'm running, I'm just jogging and I just got done. It's funny when it comes to transitions, going from that bike to run transition is hard. Going from that driver's seat to run transition was always a very hard one to get done with that 600 miles. And that's why I put in my caption that truly time behind the wheel does train you for Ironman. It does, whether it's mind or whether it's just the stiffness of the sitting. There are links to make between the two. You can always tie something back to trucking. I love it. But going I remember looking at some of those times when I'm running 10 and a half minute mile pace. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not like pace shaming here or anything, but like seeing myself on game day, like feeling the way I feel at that current speed, disbelief. I'm almost wondering, when did this happen? Where did it come from? But again, that's that. When it comes to a fitness journey or success, that's the thing. You're not going to see it happen in real time. You're not going to see it happen over time. That's why for the Lombard 69, I have you take the progress pictures. That's why in 75 hard, you take the progress pictures, because you're not going to see that change over time. 3 months can go by and the number on the scale only changed a little bit, but you don't know what else has changed. Non-scale victories is what they're called. So you might only lost 5 pounds in 3 months, but what's your mile time difference? What like there's other metrics to look at along the way, and to kind of see the finished product in real time of what the past several months has gotten me. It brought it together full circle of not just the past several months. It would spend the past 5.5 years, and like crossing the finish line. It's almost as if what I feel like, and this sounds corny, but it's almost as if it's like I was training for it my whole life. Like that's the level of like crazy you feel to see it. And I'm still riding this high of looking at that finish line picture with my name on the screen and thinking that it's fake, that there's no way this can be real. It truly, it has been an amazing experience. And I was just on another friend of mine's podcast, and I had said this, at 28 years old, I truly believed like that was it for life. Like this is what it was going to be. It was just going to be trying to work as hard as you can to get enough money to buy some time back, to just live for the weekend. And I guess like people who were in shape are just lucky. And people who did these things were just, born with it. Maybe I caught a bad draw, whatever it may be. Like I thought that life was over as I knew it. Like, yeah, maybe I'd have kids or whatever, but like in terms of growth, that's it. Tapped out. I guess I'll just work long enough, maybe get a promotion, figure out what happens. In that's what I thought. But crossing that finish line, it's just started. It literally has just begun everything that we're doing. And this is why I want to go forward on this movement. And this is why I want to really emphasize the jersey that I'm wearing and how important guys like Green Screens are in this game, how important Super Coffee is, how important Dr. Mark Manera and Off Shift is, how important guys at Truck Parking Club are. Because, and also, I want to go into this, is not only so the companies I just named, they don't realize how important it is, because what all of this has culminated is what a really good friend and great friend of the show has done recently in launching Project 61, which that's why I want to make this show today too, is to officially announce that is where my partnership is going to be and remain with, is doing everything to get Project 61 rolling. Now, Jeremy Renner, he is the host of the podcast, Taking the Hire Road, hire spelled Hire. Definitely check it out. He's a guy whose heart is in it just as much as any of you guys, including myself, so much to the point where he finally had started this organization that is working to, as a nonprofit, to raise funds to get this mission and message out there, and getting resources and education to drivers, to motor carriers, to make this change. And that's the thing. But these companies right here, Green Screens, Off Shift, Super Coffee, Truck Parking Club, they're now forever entangled with me. Whether it doesn't matter if it's long term, whether I wear the Truck Parking Club helmet, for one race or 1,000. Forever, these companies can now say, hey, you see these pictures? This is why we did it. This is who did it. This is why it's important. And it's about continuing to grow this message, because Project 61, it's bigger than all the companies I just listed. It's bigger than what's going on. This is world-changing, life-changing, a cultural shift is what Project 61 is going to do, which is why I'm doubling down on this mission and this effort with doing some hard stuff. I've been keeping it a secret. I've told some people offline, but someone who believes in me, somebody who wishes to remain anonymous, an anonymous sponsor, asked me a few months ago if they thought I could do full Ironman distance this year. And I said, I absolutely know I can. I don't think I'm going to, like, I know at the 70.3, I wanted to perform. There was a goal. My goal going into it was sub 6 hours. Now, granted, when it comes to goals, you have to be mindful. Flat tires happen. There's things out of your control. Whatever. That's life. That's why you always just get up and do it again. But my goal was sub 6 hours. Really wanted to keep the bike under 3. And I was really hoping I could keep the half marathon under 2 hours. I would have been very proud of myself. And I did those things. Full Ironman distance, the sponsor who asked me this question, I said, I'm not going to do anything crazy, but I will finish before the cutoff time. I will get to that finish line. I can guarantee it. And so I have to get myself there. But on November 2nd, I will go to Panama City Beach for full Ironman distance. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'll be wearing the same jersey I just wore. And forever, I will be able to have on my business card and my life resume of, in the year 2024, this was my mission. This is what I wanted to do. I went from 0 to Ironman in less than a year. And in fact, I did it in about 6-7 months. The reason why I did was to prove to people that if I can do this, then we can do something to make some change. And that's how I need to end 2024, is by doing it. So am I personally chasing a little bit of glory? Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Of course I am. Why wouldn't it? Why else do we do certain things that we want to do? Why else do we sometimes go to work? Why else take a risk? But the reward is even greater. The reward is I get to carry this with me for the rest of my life when I'm out there, because the overarching goal in this whole endeavor of, as an athlete, and look, I get it. I'm not a professional. I'm not Nick Bear. I'm not, guys who I follow and gain knowledge from, like Luke Hopkins and other triathletes. I'm not those people. I hope to be, and I'm only 30 minutes off from Luke Hopkins for 70.3, and I'm not that far off from some people. I was 25th in my age group, and I know I go up next year, and that could be good or bad. But, I'm at the cusp. I'm at the cusp of teetering on the level of something to tip a cap to in the fitness world. I know in the general world, it's very commendable, but in the, hierarchy, when the competition gets tighter, I'm nearing that level, and I want to get to that level, and I'm going to prove to a bunch of people that I can. And I'm going to leave you with a message at the end of the show on how you can too. But I'm there. But the overarching goal in this whole athletic endeavor, it's bigger than me. Again, Project 61 is the biggest thing. The whole idea of it has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with getting more people in on this message. That's how you change the culture. That's how you make an actual change. That's why it is so important that Super Coffee's on board. We need to get more brands in on this, and we need to get more people in the industry on it. And this is how we do it, because now Green Screens turns around and say, oh, you care about the industry? Well, here's what we're doing. We support this former driver who's doing this for this mission for this nonprofit. What are you guys doing? Hey, by the way, we're Green Screens. We're a freight tech company. We don't even have drivers, but we know that the largest stakeholder of the industry is the driver, and we're supporting it. They can say that. Mark Manera can now say that. His entire business is built off of saving drivers' lives. So much to the point that that's why he's on my tri-suit, because he's out there trying to save drivers' lives. He gets to say it. Truck Parking Club, the same thing. They want more safe. They want more. They just want more available safe parking for truck drivers. And I get it. There's an argument on LinkedIn, wherever, about the paid parking thing. I get it. But I'd say if you have questions about Truck Parking Club, Evan will be more than happy to reach out to you. He'll talk to anybody, as will their chief marketing officer or chief meme officer, whatever you want to call them. But if we raise the supply of truck parking, you're going to see the prices of other paid parking go down. Either way, we're not having that argument. If we can get more companies in on this, sending a former driver, going to these events, talking about Project 61, talking about this mission, then we get other people outside the industry. So Super Coffee's banging on the doors of the right places to be. They're already in Quick Trip. They're already in Casey's. They're in Walmart where you can grocery shop. Get them in more places. We need to get other brands on this. There's other brands out there that are missing out. And just speaking from an entrepreneurial marketing aspect, it is a win-win for a business. And that's kind of how I talked about it with green screens. This is a win-win for a piece of your marketing budget. You have a permanent piece of marketing material to prove how and why you not only belong in the industry, but care about it. The same thing for any better for you option out there over the road. So take a Celsius, for example, or Athletic Greens. They're marketing, they have a marketing team. But here's the thing, what they don't realize is we have a driver health epidemic where the average age of a driver is 61. The rates of chronic disease are double that of the American working class population when it comes to heart disease, all this stuff. You've heard me say these numbers before, whether you know them or not. You can go to project61.org, project-61.org to also see those stats, but those stats exist. So you can, as a business, come out there, like literally heroically, and be like, we want to be involved in changing this. At the same time, you're also marketing to 3 million people. So if you're Celsius, for example, or you're any company, you're a healthier, better for you option. If you're Olipop soda, if you are Poppy probiotic soda, you're talking about 3.5 million over-the-road truck drivers now. What does 3.5 million cans in hands sound like to your business, to your marketing team? So I'm speaking at you from a purely marketing perspective. So you can get yourself out there as the better option for America's truck drivers, reduce their caloric intake, make them make healthier options. You could be their gateway into choosing healthier foods, and you're going to sell more product. That's where this is going. We're talking about a win-win for everybody. That is the whole goal. And I've said it on shows before. I've said it in conversation. And if you know me personally. All I want is for people to win. All I want is for you to win. Whether I know you, whether I've met you in person, I will do anything I can to help you win. That's why I want to bring drivers onto the show. That's why I want to talk to people on the show, because your story is important and people deserve it, and your story deserves to be online. The internet is huge. We're in a war for attention. We have more distractions in our lives than at any point in human history. And there's so much garbage on the internet. You want to know what needs to be on the internet? Your story, your life. It is important because it's real. Anybody listening, to all the live viewers out there, I really appreciate you guys. Every single one of you listening has a story that's real that somebody else needs to hear, that somebody needs, that can take one thing away from. I want each and every single one of you winning. I want America's truck drivers to start winning. But for that to happen, more people need to join in on this. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not asking for any money. Like that's the thing. I'm not asking for any money. But let's make some, all I'm asking is let's make some content. Let's get some name out there. If it was 1975, I bet you Lombard Trucking could get some clout out there and could do stuff as a large business and as a large motor carrier. Well, guess what? Lombard is a name that's only, it's only going to carry me so far. I can only make so many podcast episodes and posts on the internet, and I can only do so much as one guy. Lombard isn't a household name yet, but there are other brands and businesses and people that are, and it's about getting them in on this. And in no way can anybody tell me that that is an impossible feat. It is the right thing to do. It's what this industry deserves, and it's what everybody deserves. And again, it is a win-win scenario. But again, and I can talk about this in circles, but that's the future goal. That's the mission. So if you want to be a part of this, motor carrier, brokerage, logistics company, whoever you are, there is a way to do this. We need to start tapping into our network. Get involved with Project 61. I know, reach out to Jeremy himself. I know that they are looking for partners. We need to blow this up because Project 61 needs to be able to go to these events, the truck shows, the F3s, the broker carrier summits. They need to get to these events to talk about this. And then that way we can get education to the right people and resources and whys. The educational material would be huge because that is the foundation of where all this starts. The main reason why this is a problem is education. If everybody, could you imagine? I know it's a perfect world, but could you imagine if everybody did think like me? If every truck driver thought about truck driver thought about nutrition the way I did, do you think anything would ever get bought from a truck stop? No. But the reason why people don't think about health and nutrition that way is because they're not educated. And if they are, they're not educated correctly. At orientation, they might tell you, oh, you shouldn't eat bad. You should exercise 30 minutes a day. It's not a priority. It is a priority because it's a matter of life and death. That's what it is. But anyways, when it comes to Sunday's success and when it comes to the race, number one, I just want to say thank you all for your support and all of your kind words. That's another thing that I've had to come like and really, really like kind of like also accept. I'm bad. I was raised Catholic. I'm not good at receiving compliments a lot. It's kind of hard. You're supposed to live in perpetual guilt, and so all the nice things on Instagram and LinkedIn that everyone has said, like I can't tell you how much it means, how special it is, and like that's what gives me so much hope in all this is because of that positivity. I'm sure the negativity is out there. I'm sure some of the negativity might be watching. That's fine. I mean, if you do have any issues or if you have any feedback for me, give it to me. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear this stuff. But I can't thank you guys enough. But I also want to reiterate something that I don't want to do this alone. Somebody did comment on there. Where can they get the green screens Lombard jersey on LinkedIn? That's the thing is this can go somewhere. There, like let's build a team. Like, let's make a team in this. Like, Lombard can be the team. I want people on my team, whether it's for marathons or something. Like, we can turn this into we can turn this entire athlete thing to bring in more people. It doesn't need to be just me because it's bigger than me. It's about you, especially drivers. So if you are out there thinking like I did at 28 that life is over, I guess this is it, I got a bad hand, you couldn't be any more wrong. And I know I'm not your doctor, I get it, but I am a personal trainer and coach, and I work in this and I deal with a lot of different demographics, including people who are dealing with autoimmune disease, pregnant women, new moms, 55 and up. I'm having regular conversations with these people every day, and I've seen people's transformations happen in real time, including my own, and you cannot be more wrong. A year ago, I wouldn't have even sniffed the words Ironman, let alone 5.5 years ago. Nothing is out of your realm of possibility. If you're watching this right now, shout out to the 133 people watching live. Each and every single one of the 133, now 134, each of you could do exactly what I did on Sunday. Exactly what I did. All it takes is putting one foot right in front of the other. All it takes is that first step. All it takes is that first goal you set. Big shout out to my good friend, John, who's doing the Lombard 69. All it takes is doing those small, attainable goals. Once you do that, that's the thing. Maybe you don't want to run Ironman. I get it. Right now, you might not. But the thing is, when you start, you have no idea where your mind takes you after you start making those decisions to start living a better, healthier lifestyle. Some of that might include your environment. Take a look around you and take accountability and take a diagnostic of who's in your life. Do they give you energy or are they taking? Are they giving you energy or are they taking? Are they a battery friend where they drain your battery? Do they take from you? Doesn't mean that they're bad people, but are they adding anything to you? Are they truly serving what you want to do? Yeah, are they your friend because you've just known them a long time? Or are they friend because they're there for you? These are important things. You are always going to be a product of your environment, whether you like it or not. You hang out with 5 millionaires, you got a shot at being the sixth. You hang out with 5 scumbags, you know the rest. That's the way it is. There are so many things you can take accountability of. So if you want to change your environment, I'd love to be that person in your life that wants to make that change. That's why I made the Lombard 69 program. That's why I'm going to develop it into something. That's why I'm trying to restore what my family's brand is. I've said this in episodes before, but my family's company was one of the best employers in the state of Connecticut. They were a Waterbury stable. I can go back to Waterbury right now and probably run for mayor and have a shot, because Waterbury is one of those towns where they'd be like, oh, I know that name. And they just check that box. And when I talked to my grandmother in the past, she's always mentioned to me about how much Lombard cared about their drivers. They loved their drivers, and everybody loved them, and how good of an employer they were, and how well they treated everybody, and how they were a staple in the community. Well, I'm trying to do that same exact thing, because why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I try to do that? That's where my heart's at. That's where it is. If you have any personal questions on the 70.3 kind of training tips, more into detail, what I can tell you is just long story short, if you're just tuning in now, if triathlon is something you wanted to do, here's what you need to do: swim, bike, and run, and lift some weights. And you just got to do that a whole bunch of times. There are training plans you can follow. I'd say for full Ironman distance, you definitely want to focus on some long time in the saddle, and then coming off that bike, going for some runs. But for that middle distance, get the volume where you can. Go for a 10-mile run. If you got time, go for the 10-mile run. If you got 5 hours, go for a bike ride. If you got an hour, go for a swim. If you're near a gym, just go lift some weights for 30 minutes. Just get it in where you can, and figure it out. If you want help at all with designing any sort of plan, or if you need help in your fitness journey, reach out to me. I have a platform and a tool that you can use right here on the First Form app. Shout out Pedro. He's crushing it on there right now from the Logistics Lounge. It's a great tool and resource. It allows me to see what you're doing and help coach you through it. That's what I'm opening it up to. I want to bring more people on board. I want you to win, because if you win, the industry wins, we all win. But that's all I got for today's episode. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, episode 129. As always, a solo episode. I think I'm going to knock out in 30 minutes, and then the spirit ends up moving me. And to close out, yeah, I'll let Will do it. Well, we're going to go back to the bench, but as my good friend would always, or as I say at the end of my videos, you guys need to go ahead and get the fuck after it. Take care.